Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at Walmart's latest TV streaming box. This is the ON 4K Pro, and this of course is an alternative to the Roku or to the Fire TV. And this of course you can find at your Walmart store for about $50. They were hard to get when I got this one, but I think they're starting to stock up now. And what's neat about this is that it doubles as a Google Assistant speaker when the TV is off. It's got a pretty loud speaker here inside that I will demo in a little bit, so you can have it do assistant things when your TV is not operating, very similar to Amazon's Fire TV Cube. And we're going to take a closer look at this device and what it's all about, both for consumers and for enthusiasts. And before we get into that, I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I paid for this with my own funds. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one has paid me to do this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this box is all about. In the box, you get the box itself, a power cord, an HDMI cable, which is always nice to see, and you get a remote control. However, my box did not come with the same remote control that many other people are getting with theirs. Mine is more basic here, as you can see. So you might get one with a backlit remote control with a big free TV button here at the top. Mine is more basic. This remote is not backlit, which is unfortunate that I did not get the same remote that other people are getting for the same price. So I don't know if they had a little supply issue here with the remote controls before they got them in. Now you'll notice right now my box is not plugged into a television, but because it's plugged in and on my Wi-Fi, I can make requests of it. So for example, I can say, hey, turn off my studio light.
Got it. Turning the overhead light off.
And as you can hear and see, I was able to initiate an assistant action just by speaking to the box like I would any other Google device. And that's one of the strengths here, is that you get kind of two products for the price of one. Let me turn the lights back on and let's continue looking at what we've got here. Now the speaker is on the top here. It is loud enough to be heard throughout the room. One issue I'm having with it though is that I can't get it to play music. It keeps loading up the YouTube app and piping it all out of the HDMI. Even when the TV is disconnected, it just can't play any music. But beyond that, it can answer requests, it can do the timers and all the other things that you might want a Google Assistant to do. On the front there is a button, and if you push it, you will get the remote to beep at you. So even my basic remote here has the remote finder feature. So you can push the button, or you can make a verbal request to your device here to look for the remote control. On the side, you have a mute button. So if you don't want the assistant to be listening to you, you can flick that switch and turn off the microphone. On the back, you've got an Ethernet connection here for hardwiring it to your network. That is my preferred way to go, just because you get a more reliable connection. So if you do have your router or an Ethernet port near your television, I would suggest using that for the best results. If you are curious though, it only provides 100 megabits of bandwidth, so it is not a gigabit Ethernet that you might find on more premium devices. You have your HDMI output here, and the good news is that this box supports Dolby Vision, which the prior version of their boxes did not. So if you have a newer television that supports HDR and Dolby Vision, this will work with both of those on services that support it. One technical note is that Android, which is running this device, still struggles a bit with 24 frames per second content. That is important for movies and other shows on streaming services that are shot at that frame rate. Netflix, for example, will turn my TV into 24p mode automatically. However, other services still don't support that on the Android platform. So if that's important to you, just note you might struggle still a bit with that. And then right here you have a USB port. Inside, it's got a decent Wi-Fi radio, a Wi-Fi 6 radio. Now, a little earlier, I did test this on my Wi-Fi 6 access point. It worked fine with Netflix and Disney+. So if you have it in a decent spot where it can pick up a good signal, you should be fine with the Wi-Fi. But again, my preference is the Ethernet if you can make it work. Last thing here is the USB port. It's nice to see one of these on one of these low-cost boxes, and this can be useful for plugging in a keyboard if you wanted to use that on your couch. You can also plug in external storage if you've got games and other things that you don't want to have on the internal storage. The USB port isn't all that fast, even though it is a USB 3 port, but it is adequate for the types of things you might do with one of these devices. Now, to get a little technical briefly, inside it has an AM Logic S905X4 processor. That's pretty much what we see typically on these modern Android 4K boxes, and you'll see performance in line with some of the other ones we've looked at recently a little later in the video. It has, though, 3 gigabytes of RAM, which is nice to see a little extra memory compared to some other low-cost devices, and it has 32 gigabytes of onboard storage, which can be useful if you did just want to download a couple of Android games to the device directly. So all good here on the hardware front. This is running Android 12, and then of course it's got the Google TV overlaid on top of that, and it has the March 1st, 2024 security update at the time of this recording. Let me plug it into a television now, and we'll see how it works. All right, so here we are on the home page of the On box, and one of the things that I noticed right out of the gate is that it feels very, very snappy compared to some of their other boxes. And I think that might be due to the extra amount of memory that this one has versus the others. Applications here like Netflix will load up very quickly. We'll do a quick load here from scratch to see how fast Netflix comes up, so you can get a feel for what it will be like when you plug this into your television. One of the benefits of having the extra memory is that you can very quickly switch back and forth between apps once they are loaded. But here you go, we are in and ready to start watching stuff. Now, playback performance on here is equally snappy. I'm in Netflix right now on a Creative Commons video that I can show you without getting a copyright strike, and you can see how fast a 4K movie spins up. Very quickly, no real lag here. I can very easily jump to other parts of the film without having to wait too long here. So overall, it is a good media watching experience, which is what you would expect at this price point. So no problems there. One thing that I would suggest, though, is that you want to get a separate Google account set up for everybody in your home. You likely already have that. And the reason is that the strength of the Google TV interface is its recommendation engine. And it makes recommendations based on what it knows about you from what you watch. And if you've got your kids walking up to the TV and loading up a bunch of kids stuff, that's going to impact the recommendations that you get on your homepage. Upstairs, I have an Android box that my kids occasionally use, and what happens here is I get recommendations about Animal Crossing videos and other stuff that I may not be all that interested in. So your recommendations will get messed up if you don't set up unique accounts for everybody. There is a button here on the remote with a little person on it, so you can hit that button to very quickly switch between different members of your household. They also have a kids mode that will give you an interface that prevents them from finding things that they shouldn't be watching. So lots of good recommendations here. The problem, though, that you have with this interface is that not all services are providing their content in the same way. So for example, if I do a quick search here for Deep Space Nine, and by the way, you can do that search either by summoning your assistant or just pushing the remote button here at the top and holding it. Now you can see that I've got Deep Space Nine up here, and I can add it to my watch list so that Google knows I'm interested in this, and it will give me all the different ways that I can watch this particular show, either for free through Pluto or subscribe through Paramount Plus or purchased via Google's offerings here. Now, if I go to something that's on Netflix, though, it's a different story. Stranger Things. So what happens here with Stranger Things is that I can jump to Netflix to watch it, but look at this. I can't add it to my watch list. So not everything is going to work here universally. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when you summon the Google Assistant and the TV is off, the internal speaker here will deliver the response to you. But when the TV is on, you will get the response through the television along with some visuals. So for example, I could ask it, hey, what's the weather in New York City tomorrow?
Tomorrow in New York, it'll be mostly sunny with a high of 62
and as you can see here,
50.
You get a visual response to the query. Additionally, I can just push the remote button when it's on and make similar requests. Show me the garden camera. And overall, my experience with this has been pretty much the same as what I would get out of an official Google product, if not a little better, especially because it works when the TV is off. And here what I'm doing right now is summoning my outdoor Wise camera, which works through Google's system. So I was able to pull that up and monitor what was going on outside. So overall, I found it to be a very useful assistant, both when the TV is on and when it is off. Now, it's very easy to find apps on here. You can summon them with your voice by using the remote or saying, hey, you know what, and having the assistant search that way. Additionally, there is an app section to the interface here at the top, and here you can browse through the available applications to download and of course search as well. There's actually a good amount of games on here. I'll show you a game in a little bit. So you're able to play games and of course download all of your media apps on here as well. As far as your apps are concerned, the ones that you've installed, they will be in the Your App section. So you will find that on the app menu here, but you'll also find it on the home screen if you scroll down a little bit here, and you'll see them here. It just keeps kind of going and going, but you can reorder this. So if, for example, I wanted Apple TV to be over here, I can move it and get it positioned the way I want. Another neat feature of the box is that there is a customized button here at the top that you can program to do different things. So for example, I've programmed the button on mine to load up the Plex app whenever I push it. And in full disclosure, Plex is an occasional sponsor here on the channel. But you can also reprogram it just by holding it down. Then you have the option to select a different app to launch with the button or change your display inputs when you push the button. Now, like the other platforms, live free television is integrated into the interface. And if you look up top here, you will see the option for live. And one of the nice things about the Google interface is that it will try to find things that interest me. So for example, I've got Star Trek here front and center. I've got some local news that's popped up here. And what Google does is it integrates some of their free channels that they have as part of their platform, as you can see here, along with channels that come in from the various apps that you have installed on your box if that app supports it. So you can see here I've got some local news options, and these things are coming in from different apps that I have installed. So you can very easily find something to watch with what looks like hundreds of channels here to choose from. Now, if your remote lacks the free TV button like mine does, this button right here to the right of the home button will bring you to that live section. All right, one last section of the interface to talk about briefly, and that is the library section. Here you will find all of the media that you purchased on Google's Play platform. And you'll notice I have a lot of movies on here, and I didn't buy all of these from Google. I actually bought the physical disc and then used the Movies Anywhere code that you find in the disc to sync up with Google Play. It's a very useful service, and I did a video about it, which I'll put in the video description. And then at the bottom here, you will find the watch list. And here you can check out different shows that you have added and see where you can watch them. So for example, we can go to Star Trek here like we did earlier, pick the season that we want to watch and go from there. So it's a nice place to keep everything together there in the library section. Let's take a look now and see how this thing plays games. All right, we're going to start off with a game that I always like to test on Android devices, whether they're phones or TV boxes. This one's called Horizon Chase, and I'm noticing some graphical glitches that I occasionally see on boxes like this. And unfortunately, this game just isn't playable because, as you can see here, the road is completely invisible. So while the performance looks okay, the game itself doesn't run all that great. Let's see if I can find something that does run. All right, here's a game that does work. This is Pac-Man 256. It is a mobile game that also runs on the television. And this is pretty much the extent of what you can expect for gaming, at least insofar as what you can install from the Google Play Store. As you'll see in a minute when we get into our technical topics, the performance of the hardware on this machine is not spectacular. So it is not going to rival the NVIDIA Shield or some of the other more robust boxes out there. But this is the type of gaming that should work well. It can also do well with game emulators. And although this box won't be able to handle the PS2 or the GameCube, it should be able to handle systems like the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, along with a number of 8-bit systems as well. Let's take a look at game streaming. Now, this is the GeForce Now service running through their app on the box here. And it started off as a very good experience. As you can see here, the game is running very, very nicely, except after a few minutes, it locked up. And now I can't do anything. The game has been frozen here for the last 5 minutes or so. It still has an active network connection, but nothing's happening. So I think what's happening here is the network hardware is getting overwhelmed given the large amount of data traffic that this service generates, and it's just not able to keep up. I think some of the lower end services like Xbox cloud gaming should work okay on here, along with maybe Amazon Luna and a few others. But some of these more demanding services like GeForce Now are just not going to work here, which is kind of disappointing given that this is marketed as a pro device. So now let's move on to a more technical discussion, starting with the 3D Mark Slingshot Benchmark test. There we got a score of 579, and what you'll notice there is that is pretty much the same score we got out of their non-pro on Google TV box, and that is because they're running with largely the same processor on board. You will also see that the Chromecast with Google TV is also getting a very similar score because it too has a similar processor. Now, if we look at the more expensive Fire TV Cube Gen 3, which is kind of similar to this one in many ways, that one performs much better because it does have a much faster processor. But of course, you're paying a little bit more for that device as well. Now, earlier I did try out Plex on here, and unfortunately for home theater enthusiasts, this box is not going to cut it. It'll do fine with your streaming services, but when you load up Plex and start playing back some of your Blu-ray MKVs, you're not going to have much success, especially when it comes to lossless audio. So DTS-X, DTS-HD, and Dolby True HD Atmos do not work on this box. So you will be out of luck if you were hoping this might be a good NVIDIA Shield alternative. And really what we've got here is the same on-box we could have bought last fall, just with a few extra features attached in a new package. This is not anything beyond that. So for enthusiasts, unfortunately, that Pro label doesn't mean much, but for general consumers, I think this is actually a very good alternative to a Fire TV or a Roku. You've got a nice open operating system here that you can play with. All of the apps that you might want to get are on here. It performs quite well. It supports all of the different video and audio formats that popular services provide to you. So all of those things are good. And I like the fact that you've got the Google Assistant integration on this, and you can use it like a Google speaker even when the TV is off. I don't think Google has a product like this, yet Walmart has managed to make it work. I do wish it could play music when the TV is off. Maybe that's something they can improve with a future firmware update. But overall, if I was shopping for a on-TV box, I would definitely choose this one over the less expensive one because you do get some nice functionality for the extra money, and it looks a lot nicer too. It feels a little more premium, yet it doesn't carry a ridiculously premium price. So overall, not a bad little box here, just not something I think enthusiasts should be excited about. But general consumers, I think, will get quite a bit out of this, especially if they were looking for something a little more flexible than what you might get from Roku or Amazon. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Budley, Hot Sauce and Video Games, Steve Green, and Amda Brown. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.